Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
And good evening, everyone. If you're not drunk this weekend, by this time next week, you'll probably wish you were, because, oh boy, are the family times a-coming, and we all know what we need to deal with some of those assholes. But that got me thinking. Either adding to or replacing a holiday on our calendar with something from a sci-fi franchise, what would you pick? Which actually ended up being a more difficult topic than I thought it was going to be initially, because let's think about it. How many sci-fi franchises are fleshed out to the point that they have their own holiday schedule? Like, even just one. And as Leon was mentioning a minute ago, how many of those holidays mentioned in the sci-fi franchises aren't just redressings of current modern holidays? About the only ones I can think of that aren't simple redressings come from the Klingon culture in Star Trek. But, as you said, they're Klingons, so is that a bit of your xenophobia poking out?
It's not really xenophobia, it's that Klingon will take anything. If someone went up against 20 foes and managed to slay 15 of them before dying, hey, holiday. If someone managed to bravely and honorably stab someone in the back, hey, holiday. Do we just want some pain? You better fucking believe it's a holiday. They're a bit frivolous in how they actually dish out the holidays, etc., etc.
Should have brought smoke blocks.
Well, and with that, there was another one you mentioned that I think would be a more interesting one. I think in a month's time could be much more interesting if, instead of celebrating the claimed birth of a religious figure, we actually went with Sanguinala and actually paid homage to...
Yeah, I got myself stuck in one.
Was it supposed to be hovering in midair?
No.
That would have been quite the trick had you kept it there. But I have to admit, it would be rather interesting to see how many people would jump onto some of the traditions that the Blood Angels have actually used for celebrating the mythos around their Primarch and progenitor.
Do you mean like the mass sacrifices of civilians?
And then the bathing in the blood and the... Wait, we're not supposed to talk about that stuff publicly. That's right.
Yes, we are. Always.
For those who haven't seen it, Arch has actually done a nice series of the successor chapters of the Blood Angels and goes into some rather fun details about how they dealt with certain aspects of their uniqueness caused by their gene seed.
Well, that's one way of putting it.
It's probably the most kind way it could be described. I mean, Otherwise, I would have to just outright say that it turns them into bloodthirsty monsters that have no conscience or only a minor recollection of things they've did, if they even survive the Black Rage.
You mean they're just regular space marines, except they don't remember it?
Oh, they ratcheted it up a notch.
Because looking at space marines in general, unless they wear green, they're not usually too careful about what they do. I mean, there's heretics everywhere. And then someone tries to stump on your honor, and you just have to retribute at that point.
Yeah, but well, to be honest, you don't hear about the Ultra Smurfs doing it that often, but yeah.
That's because they're fucking Smurfs.
Yeah. The OP fucks.
But do they not do it because the orcs believe that they are some kind of paragons, so they can't do it?
That is a good possibility, because, I mean, when you get enough orcs believing in it, it happens. I mean, I remember there being a certain commissar who gained rather mythic abilities simply because the orcs he was fighting on Vrax started to believe it.
Yeah. I mean, if you can use it, why shouldn't you get a laser eye? Why shouldn't you get a giant fucking claw arm?
That you ripped off of a war boss.
After he ripped your arm off. Because, why not? You know, I see no reasons why not.
Yeah, but so for entirely unique holidays, because yes, Sanguinala really is a Warhammer bastardization of Christmas, which even Christmas is a bastardization of the pagan winter solstice and Saturnalia, and yeah. It's almost like we have a habit as a species to just repurpose things and redress them for our modern sensibilities.
I have a question though. With this, what do we class as sci-fi?
I would not put Lord of the Rings or anything that is purely a fantasy-based realm into it. So Star Wars gets a pass, even though they have a fantasy aspect to it. You still have enough to where I'll give them a pass as being sci-fi enough. Which I know they've already tried with a certain thing that happened in the early 80s that someone didn't want to talk about, but...
Oh, we don't talk about that. It never happened. Never happened.
But we're not talking about doing that with the holidays. We're talking about taking a holiday from the lore, from the canon sources. You know what? Let's even go extra canonical. Let's go with beta canon as well, expanded canon, and it just pull in from all potential sources and let's see what the options are. One of the first suggestions that we actually had, I'm not really sure how we could do it, simply because I don't fucking trust people enough. And that would be First Contact Day. The problem with that is, when you really look at it, it's kind of like what they did in Independence Day, the movie, the first one, the real one, where they appropriated the American holiday of independence, where they declared their separation from the United Kingdom and really got into the throes of the Revolutionary War. and made it a global thing because that's the day that they defeated the attempting invading species. Okay, that one I can kind of see that mixing it up that way, but we don't have even close to enough unity or camaraderie to really make that be a genuine thing, unless you want to pre-celebrate it as a way to try to get to that point where people are less assholes to each other. I could be convinced of that.
Couldn't we, in that case, though, find a sci-fi universe where we don't start celebrating Christmas until it's actually fucking Christmas? And not a month and a fucking half before that.
Oh no. There are places... Actually, you know what? I think this is the first year that we weren't getting Christmas messages and Christmas type of advertisements in the summer. Yeah.
It's been a while, yeah.
2019, it definitely happened. 2020, there weren't as many, but you still had some people doing a Christmas in July, Christmas in August type of thing to try to help spur the economy, because that's really what that holiday has become about. Like so many others. It's about the profitability. It's about the marketing and the economic impact.
Oh,
I have a hypothesis regarding that, though. It's all about Mariah Carey. When she needs money, when she needs her, annual boost of money, Christmas starts. Everyone starts playing fucking Christmas songs, including the one by her. And therefore she gets royalties. It is a ploy.
So yeah, we could blame her. I mean, it does fit the presentation. There's definitely a correlation there. And Wham, Wham too. I mean, the George Michael's estate. I mean,
So we're gonna have to see when Mariah Carey and when, everyone involved with Wham actually dies, or their companies and shit like that just expires. Will Christmas actually, go back to normal times again?
no.
What's your definition of normal? The waiting until after Thanksgiving and Black Friday?
Nothing happening, or nothing Christmassy being celebrated happening or being decorated for until at least December.
That's going to be a tough one. That would probably take a few generations, but something a little more immediate would probably be getting it at least until... I'm going to be a bit more realistic. I'm going to say the last full week of November is going to be the beginning of a realistic gray period and transition period, because there are a number of cultures out there that do celebrate Christmas in some way, but don't celebrate the American time frame for Thanksgiving. And yeah, I'm looking at you assholes up north.
With that, then, most of the time when you have something regarding Christmas that isn't, Thanksgiving, you start with the first of Advent.
Which, yeah, if you're going with the Advent schedule, then yeah, you're in December when it starts.
Yeah, the first Sunday in December. I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I think it is. So I don't see why not just go with that in that case. Just have it so that when you have these shit or these things going on, it's something that you don't actually start celebrating it until the fucking month you're supposed to celebrate it. And if it could make it non-commercialized as well, unrealistic, but I would prefer it.
Yeah, keeping the commercialization out of it is tough, which is why it would actually. I'm surprised there hasn't been more of a push for something along the lines of Allspark Day, like Al has been mentioning in the chat, because the Transformers franchise is a thing because of the toys. It started as a toy line that then became something in other material. So why hasn't Hasbro been pushing for an actual event related around Allspark Day?
Do you want to know why? They don't have much else as it is right now outside of the toys that they can actually market in that way. Because we have May the 5th. Wait, May the 4th.
May the 4th, and
Oh, what is the 5th? They call the 5th.
It's
Revenge of the 5th.
Revenge
Yes,
of
that's
the.
one.
It's Revenge of the 6th. The Sith.
Yeah.
What the fuck is the 5th in that case?
Well, you have
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, you have Cinco de Mayo, which is
No, but I mean with Star Wars, because that's also something there that's
It'd be something off the Empire Strikes Back motif.
probably. No, but with that, Star Wars has a fuck ton, not just toys, but also the media. You have the movies, which Transformers has the movies, but they don't really have as much of an impact as everything Star Wars. You have the games, you have the books, you have everything like that.
the comics, the cartoons, you do have a lot of extra material and marketability from Star Wars, which that is one thing George Lucas got right. He knew where he was really going to make money from the franchise, and it wasn't just the movie and video sales.
Merchandise.
Yep.
No, but with that, May the 4th is essentially a type of holiday as it is. You see it marketed, you see all the merchandise for it, everything regarding it. And I would say that, by and large, you can't really get past that. You can't really get past that. It is a de facto holiday, despite it not being celebrated as a nationally recognized holiday.
Well, here's the question, though. Would you actually be accepting of a national or even international holiday based around it, seeing as how, well, current governments aren't doing any better than the Galactic Republic was?
I don't know, because the more you spread it out, the more it's going to be commercialized. I would be okay with having an unofficial contract with, say, movie places and shit like that. We're from May the 4th of May, and then the 5th of May, and then the 6th of May. You run a Star Wars original trilogy marathon. Or even that you run all three. Well, that only makes it 2 days. But you run the movies during those days. You do it so that you have a way of actually watching the movies those 2 days. You don't really need to have a lot more than that, because the more you have other than that, the more it's going to be that we can sell more shit now. We can sell more cheap shit. We can sell all these things that people don't really want, people don't really need. Or since it's a holiday, you don't want to, disappoint your nerd friends, do you?
Hey, that lizard plant holder was amazing.
That one was, but that is a standalone thing. We can have a lizard plant holder holiday, but I feel like they commercialized that too. And then come the fucking scalies, and then shit just gets weird.
But I was saying, any new holiday is going to be commercialized. We just have to get over that fact that there's going to be a Ferengi mentality to it no matter what. There's going to be an attempt to profit off of it no matter what. So if that's the case, why don't we try to figure out what day it was that Zach actually started enacting a lot of the cultural changes on Ferenginar, and celebrate that day. At least there will be some gain from that, and you might even be able to rope in a lot of the idiotic SJW types into going for it too, since it is all about the expansions of rights and access to commerce.
No, they don't want the access to the commerce. They just want to control the means of production.
But why?
Tomato.
But why wouldn't you enjoy giving an entire half of a species equal access to the ability to make profit and exploit others? I mean, it seems like it's right up their alley.
It seems like it would be.
Except I see a wee bit of an issue here. You'll have first a few of them, or a few of the feminists in this case, or social justice warriors, who would laud it, who would say that, oh yes, but this is so good. Oh look, it's so great. But then it would take a year, maybe 2 years, and they would start saying that's oppressive. Because now, people have to actually, buy their own shit. Like a Ferenginar. At first, it seems like a really good idea, until you realize the only reason that Zek actually did that was to get more profit. More profit from more people buying shit.
Ah.
And how will they get that profit in the first place? They're going to have to work. And if they have to work, well, they're going to have to start buying their own shit. You're going to have to start getting, larger families. Because if you don't have that, or if you have something where, say, one of the parents pass away and they have kids, you'll still need to have someone more there to help along, be it a step-parent or something similar. Otherwise, you're going to have more and more issues with, say, for example, poverty, a lack of access to education, lack of access to healthcare.
All that
It's
taken
almost
for
like
nothing.
we've seen this before.
Oh, I know. And if we're gonna go with so Al brought up BSG's Colonial Day. If we're gonna go with that, there is a better version of that holiday from a different franchise that
Sci-fi?
I see could be a lot more fun. Yeah, Unification Day, and we already know which day that is, September 20th. But if you're going to celebrate that, you got to celebrate it in the most accurate and appropriate way possible. And that's in an allied friendly bar.
I can already see the issues arising from this. Especially since the main thing that's going to happen is that people are going to complain that brown coats go out and punch people.
No, they're just defending themselves. Or is that a topic for the show after this one?
I almost think so, yes. Because in one case, they go there and actually, maybe look for trouble, maybe try to antagonize things. In another case, they go to a place because someone's already there, setting shit on fire, looting, rioting, and bullshit. And then they get chased. Especially by kiddie diddlers.
Now, let's be
We'll talk
honest.
about that one in the next one.
Yeah, and let's be real here. Mal just wanted to have a good drink. He wasn't the one to throw the first punch. Although I do have to say, I do like their windows. You don't have to worry about shattered glass all over the place.
When the holograms work. And don't just fuck you over like a pool table.
But, I think that's one of the things is you don't have many franchises that actually have a culturally significant holiday established in the lore that's not some sort of Independence Day. That's not some sort of demarcation of a political event.
Or just something that's a complete rip-off of what we already have.
Yeah.
Except for the Klingons, as mentioned earlier.
Which,
Who have a bit too fun with a lot of it.
Hey, any excuse to have some grog and mead along with some gak, Who doesn't enjoy it?
Here's a question, though. Do Klingon get into merchandising?
they do have Klingon merchants. And if you remember, in TNG, Worf took Alexander to a Klingon outpost where they were celebrating a festival, and there was merchandising. There were sales related to the festival going on, more than just your, fair type of food vendors. There were knickknacks being sold. So, you do have that aspect around it. It might not always be the Klingons themselves, but you get a celebratory gathering of enough people, and it's on a regular schedule, it's on a predictable basis, someone will show up to sell stuff.
Hey, Claire.
Okay. Especially someone with a kind of ratish face who tries to sell sausages in a bun. His name might be something like Dibbler, Dibbala, Dribbler, something like that. And he's always going to sell it at such a low price that it's cutting his own throat.
Or so he has you believe.
How much have you read of Discworld?
Not enough.
I cut me own throat Dibbler, who at any point in time will try to have an enterprise, like, selling sausages that are at least mostly something you might recognize from a pig, or trying to sell anti-dragon amulets, which, well, the warrant is that if you come back afterwards and ask for money back after it's happened and it hasn't protected you, you'll get your money back. Otherwise, it's really fucking hard just finding a holiday like that.
And see, this is why I thought it would be a rather interesting thing to contemplate, because there so many of the instances, like there is a mention of the an alien Day of the Dead from Babylon 5, So, extraterrestrial Halloween. Because that's actually what Halloween started as the Spanish
Aliens?
Day of the Dead.
Oh god.
Both yes and no. There's a lot of common denominators for it. It's just one of those things where some have prevailed in some areas. And like here, we used to have more All Hallows Eve, which the way they'd celebrate it isn't exactly the same. It's more for all the saints, etc.
Dibbler the hot dog vendor.
Well, mostly hot dogs. And by that I mean the hot dogs are mostly. Yeah.
They're a type of meat. You may not want to know what type of meat, but it's meat.
Potentially.
But since we're at that point, how would you guys respond to? Hang on, let me post it here. That one. Let's go with this variant of a holiday. Yes, it is an existing one, but I think it could be.
Shall I share it with the audience?
Entertaining. Go for it.
I don't know.
Waylon Otani, they always have the best in mind and the best intentions for the people of humanity, both on Earth and in amongst the stars.
Yeah, both that though. Well, say that we were to, say, invent a new holiday. Not even necessarily based on something that's already existing today. What would that holiday be? What would the crux of the holiday be?
We would have to find something that would be of wide enough cultural significance that its adoption wouldn't be completely hindered. So this really does end up being, if we go with something along the lines of a First Contact Day or something related to the expansion of, or some monumental moment, why not go with in a few years when the first colony is established on Mars or somewhere that is not on terra firma? Go with that. That's something that I could see happening.
Just the first colony or the first successful colony? As in, start celebrating it, say, a year after the actual establishment of the outpost or of the colony, just to make sure that it doesn't turn into a, well, let's just say a shitty time.
Well, and that's where the first celebration would be on the 1-year anniversary of that colony. Ideally, it would be with that colony still being a viable thing and still progressing and going on and even probably growing. That would be the ideal situation. And what the fuck is that zombie doing up in there?
Trying to sneak attack.
trying to bring the operative phrase.
That was, wow. Talk about being in the closet.
Giggity. Oh. Hit him from here? A little high.
Now, but otherwise, is there a way to have a holiday that can't be commercially exploited?
Yes, but not in our society today.
Okay. Let him go that way.
Well, he just fucked right off.
Yeah. Well, so here's my thought on that aspect is you're going to have commercialization of any holiday so long as commercialization and commerce is such a core part of our society. Once that sort of commercial avenue and economic gain is out of the equation, is not a driving force of humanity, then you will not see the commercialization of holidays.
So this is Pig's acting job, by the way, Jared, in case you didn't remember.
And Jens, don't blame the game so much because this is going through Google Meets, which is horrendous for frame rate on video sharing. So it probably looks pretty nice on Jay's end. It just looks like shit for the rest of us as he's moving around.
Yes, it looks absolutely wonderful on my end.
But
technically, I shouldn't be rating this, so but oh well.
Yeah, Rodent does bring up a good comparison. So the colony doesn't have to survive. Think of Leif Erikson Day. And same could be said for other discovery-related things, which is why I go with something along those lines. Yes. Well aware of that one, Rodent, and was going to bring up Valentine's Day too, how that is entirely a commercial holiday.
Look up there.
Nerdy glasses. The fact that they even had to put in nerdy.
There's actually a question here that's really hard to answer, though. We've talked about holidays here, which that's all fine and dandy. But something quite fucking obvious just struck me. We can't all have an Earth calendar.
No. Once we become an extraterrestrial species as well as terrestrial, timekeeping and date keeping is going to have to change to adapt and be a uniform time code.
Or everyone's going to have their own thing. That's then transposed to a standard when needed.
Yeah.
Because let's just say something like, say we put a colony on Pluto. How in the fuck are you supposed to count a year on Pluto the same way that we count a year here?
Well, you would have your Plutonian year, and then you would have your terrestrial year, your Terran year. So you would still depending on your method of travel to get there, it would actually be relatively easy to sync up time between the two, where you would have an atomic clock running that is your synchronization piece for time on Earth. So we know what the transmission delay for communications are there and back. The issue with that time synchronization actually comes from the travel of the people and material between the places. Because time dilation is a thing, and that's what you would have to try to compensate for. And that's actually something in Star Trek that they did, is they had beacons strategically placed throughout the Federation territory that were just simply time synchronization beacons for the purpose of keeping a uniform timekeeping throughout all of the places that they had jurisdiction.
Only because I have a 9mm.
Now, the whole concept of actually having a holiday that's actually based on something that happens in most space like that. I don't know. It's really hard to actually do it. It's really hard to pull it off.
Well, and that's because with our current level of technology and understanding of everything, it is going to be very much like The Expanse, where once humanity gets established somewhere else, be it in the asteroid belt, be it on the moon, be it on Mars or some other body in the solar system, there is going to be a deviation between society and humanity here on Earth and those colonies, those outposts. The ones who are in more consistent contact will de facto evolve as their own subset, as their own societal construct. But there's going to be deviations simply because of that separation. So it will be interesting to see just how current societal divisions amongst humanity play out in that sort of environment. Because I am not expecting it to go well. Especially if the last, call it 5 years, is any indication. If anything, we are further away from being a unified species of any sort than we ever have been.
That's just because there are people out there that don't want unification at all, period. They'd much rather have the us versus them mentality.
It's not just that, it's the whole trying to actually find even more shit to split stuff up with. It's like, who was it that made that fucking joke? The whole talk about someone has an opportunity to help another person, and they go through it, and they're in the same church, they're in the same subgroup of that church, or same religion, same church, same subgroup of that, and then they follow this and they follow that, and then in the end, there's one small fucking infinitesimal thing that they don't both agree with. So the first one kills the other one, or just lets him die, and says, "Yeah, the fucking heretic."
Oh, we wouldn't kill people for heresy. What are you talking?
We don't kill them for heresy. They kill themselves by straying from the Lord.
Where's the Omnissiah when we need him? Well, and you know, Rodent, I am not opposed to that one. It's one of those. If what the hell? What?
You're being called into work.
No, I'm not. I'm not on call this week. It's the phone catching up with notifications that are an hour fucking old. Fuck you.
But maybe you want them?
No. But so, Ronan suggested that once Mars has a colony established on it, seeing them declaring their independence from Earth and starting the cult of the Mechanicus, and the first Martian national holiday being Apogee Day, the day that we are furthest from Earth. I can support that one. I would be there and I would enjoy that type of holiday because sorry, most of you fuckers on this planet just no. I want nothing to do with you.
It reminds me, I got something for the panel in the next show.
Oh,
I have to
jeez.
share.
That doesn't sound good.
You'll love it.
I have doubts with that tone of voice.
Oh, come on. Are you sure?
Kinda. I think that one thing we can agree with when it comes to holidays, etc., and all that shit. No matter what holiday it is, no matter how non-commercialized or how commercialized it is, no matter where it's celebrated, no matter how it's celebrated, someone's going to be butthurt over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really is the unfortunate bit that there's no way to make everyone even just tolerant and accepting of something new like that. Unless extreme measures were allowed to be taken, which...
Define extreme.
The snippet is snapped and removed from humanity.
There's that, or the Aurora chair from Farscape and forced re-education and tweaking of certain aspects of the personality and memory.
Oh, come on. We as a society would never do that. We've never tried manipulating people's minds for the more cohesive society ever.
What do you mean, try? And thumb screws are completely legitimate.
Yeah, there's...
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of, certain kings and their favorite cod piece of their armor and, not enough wives producing male heirs, But,
Well, you have that one. You also have even more recent history. You had an entire industry taken over. And not openly, but subversely taken over and influenced by the government for the sole purpose of propaganda.
Are we talking about Walmart or Amazon?
A little bit older than both of them.
Kmart?
I'm talking the media Specific,
Oh, I know.
specifically Hollywood. I mean, is something about the 1940s and 50s? I mean,
You mean Donald Duck fighting Hitler?
or Batman going after the Japanese mafia.
Or Captain America versus Hitler? And... Oh,
I
yay.
don't see why so many people have so many issues just going after Hitler. I mean, just, I don't know. Tell him there's Jews in Russia in the winter or some shit.
I think someone tried that, and
Almost
It
worked.
almost worked.
it almost did.
We're just going to have to try it again. Well, maybe not now. I mean, Wallace is still alive in Argentina, but...
Ironically, you mentioned that. I actually watched a video the other day that showed the picture of Hitler in Argentina. Had a chuckle of that.
Now, I still don't see why people celebrate Hitler's birthday. I mean, every fucking time, every fucking year, on the 20th or 20th of April, people go out and just say blaze it. That's rather insensitive, I think.
I mean, that sometimes they're not exactly descriptive with what they're saying. You should light up, but I mean, they're partway there.
Like 50%?
Yeah, I think you got it, Jay.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much that, it was the is there anything down here that's gonna kill me right away? Like through there.
Well, if you now, how the hell did that? Whoa, that. Alrighty then.
Yep.
I might as well take. Oh,
Come to think of it, though.
Oh, rodent, that's a good one. I like it. Run says, I celebrate 420 on January 5th because I can reduce fractions.
No, but with this, though, and just knowing that humans are bastards, how long would it take until someone had a holiday in order to do just the most egregious fucking shit?
Oh, the Purge.
And then try to... Say again?
The premise behind the Purge.
Essentially. Or even worse. Now, because we know that if there was a holiday, or even a chance of doing something like a holiday, or creating a holiday by yourself, you would have people doing the worst kinds of fucking shit. And not just like the Purge, I'm talking everything else as well. And then afterwards, well, you can't tell us that that's wrong. Because that's my belief, that's my holiday. And it's culturally insensitive for you to say that I should not be able to do this or shouldn't be allowed to do this.
Oh, and that's the thing with the Purge is the first movie set it up that nothing is illegal during that 24-hour period, with the exception of killing a head of state. Something that would result in complete chaos after the 24-hour period from a governing standpoint. That's the only thing off limits. But if you're not going after a head of state, there's nothing that is against the law during that 24-hour period. And you cannot be prosecuted for anything done in that 24-hour period. So, yeah, that is what you're talking about. That is what you're alluding to. That no holds barred, free for all, do whatever you want, and you can't do or say anything because it happened during this time period.
Yeah, I just see that as being something where so many people would just they would take advantage of it and well, do openly the things that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise, just during that time, for the sake of it. Because humans are fucking assholes.
Oh, I cleared it out already? That was weak. I haven't even gone upstairs yet.
I would like to see that when it comes to holidays, something that's actually a holiday that's about being, say, for example, with your family without necessarily having to deal with the parts of your family that you can't fucking be arsed with.
I mean, as long as you don't call it a family reunion, then even Alabama wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, they don't like the term family reunion. They prefer speed dating.
Yeah, it's something like that otherwise, because, well, let's face it, most of the time, for the holidays now, it's either that you meet up because it's when you have free time. You've been given essentially free time to take a day of work, etc., etc. Or it's something where you know that everyone else has got free time. Or it's just tradition that we do this day because, for the simple reason of, But just having something like that where you don't actually have the expectations of you have to go and meet these fuckers that you don't really care for. You have to do it because you know that, well, it's the only way that you can meet these other fuckers that you actually do care for.
Having to deal with the assholes you don't like, just yeah.
Yeah, or just the pressures of. I don't know how most people do it over in the US. But say, for example, for Christmas, you can meet up for Christmas, just have something like that. Not a family reunion per se, but having it so that you can meet up without expectations of Christmas as well. Not the expectations of, okay, yeah, you're gonna stand in the kitchen fucking 5, 6, 7 hours on Christmas Day, not counting the days before. And it just being a massive pain in the ass having to deal with those things as well. Or having to deal with, what do we take as an example? Having to deal with, oh yes, we have to get everything ready now because the kids are getting impatient, so they need their presents now. Everything like that. Just having it so you can have essentially something similar to a family reunion, but just with select parts of the family and none of the obligations for all that kind of shit. Say just a fucking day off for when you can actually do whatever the fuck you want and not have any kind of expectations that you need to meet up with everyone.
Well, technically, that's actually what Labor Day was kind of pointed out to, and what its spiritual genesis actually was an additional holiday for the workers to be given a day off to be shown appreciation for their labor, for the fruits of their work. To, hey, take a day off, go spend it with whoever, however you want. So maybe actually getting back to the core of that type of mentality with that intent behind it and a reminder that that's actually what the day was supposed to be about. Not, hey, it's the end of summer, let's go out and have one last hurrah.
Yeah, because otherwise, so far, well, with the holidays that we have, with the expectations of the holidays that we have, you're expected to go out, you're expected to be social with people you don't really care much for. Or say something like Christmas, you're expected to get the whole thing with Christmas presents. You're expected to participate in everything regarding the presents, or the food, or all the shit surrounding it. And sure, it can be nice at times, but then it just turns into one of those things where everything is kind of the same. You have Christmas, but then you have the other shit. You have Halloween, where you're expected to buy sweets and shit like that. Well, at least at times. You have shit like the stuff that happens in the summer with Midsummer, etc., which isn't necessarily something where you have to go out and buy shit, but it's still something it can be a pain in the ass just with everything happening then.
There are still perceived obligations that go along with it.
Yeah. Instead of just having it so that you can just chill out with the people that you love during that time.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Claire's bit on this one, that all the pressure that a lot of these holidays have attached to them, all that societal expectations and norms,
Yeah.
takes away from the enjoyability, because it does make it more of a perceived forced thing instead of an actual celebration and actual accepting of everything.
Yeah, because let's just take my family as an example. With the way it happens on, well, Christmas Eve, since we do celebrate the Eve, not the day, most of the time, it's something where people have been, well, doing a lot of shit for days before that. Just getting everything prepped, getting the ham ready, making the other pieces of the food that can be made beforehand, all that shit. But you can't just do everything by a tight schedule on Christmas Eve. There's going to be other things that get in the way. If it's one person standing in the kitchen right then, or if it's 4 people trying to actually, do something at the same time and miserably failing because everyone gets in other people's way. If it's something that, well, as it used to be when I was younger, the fucking Christmas tree wasn't in yet. All those things, everything like that, and then the whole, oh yes, but we need to do this with the kids. We need to celebrate with the kids, and oh yeah, we need to make sure that the kids have as good of a Christmas as possible. When I was younger, that wasn't the case. When I was a kid, it was Christmas. It wasn't a Christmas for kids. It was Christmas. People did their thing. People just, well, did whatever the fuck it was that they needed to or wanted to at the time. But there was no expectation of, oh yeah, now it's 3. Now we have to watch the Christmas Dog special stuff on TV. Usually that happened, but it wasn't something that was a forced thing.
Yeah, it was more of an organic, oh, hey, it's on, let's watch it. Not a, okay, it's on, we gotta watch it, we gotta do this. There was less pressure to it.
Yeah, and that as well as the rest of the shit. Because now it's, oh yeah, but it's getting late. Yeah, we should open the Christmas presents so that the kids don't get too impatient. Well, actually, I'm not going to say what I said there because that might be taken, or that might be taken out of context. But it's something where the kids do not actually have the deciding vote in all this. The kids are not the ones who are supposed to decide when shit happens or what shit happens. Because if they do, it's just going to be miserable for the adults.
Oh, that is one thing that my family did when I was growing up that was actually rather well played and well handled. If any of the kids started to ask, "Hey, when are we doing this? When are we opening presents?" Every time the question was asked, it got delayed. Whenever anything like that came up that was showing impatience and a focus on something other than what the day was actually at its core supposed to be about. Oh, you're looking forward to this? Yeah, you gotta wait longer now. Just be in the moment and let the day be the day. Let it just be as it's going to be. And just enjoy the company of people that you generally don't see very often. But people can't do that. I mean, there's been such a push to pacify and appease the individual and their desires that it really has undermined so much of what should be appreciated and instead are just taken for granted now. It's gonna take a couple of generations to correct that sort of, shall we call it, societal defect. There are some families out there who are still managing those situations and looking at those events in an appropriate way, but with the way it's been pushed for it to be the opposite and the way it's been normalized, it is very quick to deviate from a good core foundation. But it always takes 2 to 3 times as long to course correct back.
And it's just sad with how much it really takes away from it. How much it takes away from the enjoyment of it. Because instead of having a chill holiday, it turns into a farce. It turns into something you're forced to do these things. You have to do these things. You have to get this shit done now. Because otherwise people are getting impatient, and if people get impatient, you can't do this, and yada 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 yada. And it just turns into an obligation. It turns into being forced to do all these things for no real reason. Because let's face it, there is no real reason to do all these things. Say, having a Christmas, having a Christmas celebration, or having a celebration of Thanksgiving, or having a celebration of whatever the fuck. If you're just focused on going through the motions and not actually taking your time to enjoy the family around you, at one of the few fucking occasions that you can actually all meet up.
I see we have a Korean in the chat.
Well, you might be a bit early, otherwise Purple could have said something about that.
Oh. You know what? I'm taking the screenshot of that for later.
All right.
That's actually a question. in the Star Trek universe, or in the current day Star Trek universe, if you can call it that, after the events of DS9 and Voyager, well, not entirely after Voyager, but you get what I mean. With Christmas, do they just replicate the food in most cases and just have that shit done?
Depends. Is your last name Cisco?
Thankfully, no.
Then you're replicating.
You're probably replicating a good portion of it, but if your name is Cisco, you're cooking the entire thing. Or,
Well, technically, generally the food would be replicated, I think.
Oh no, even
Other than at the restaurant, I mean.
Well, no, even Cisco on the station, a lot of what he cooked, it was not replicated ingredients, only when he had to. But again, that is when he cooked. But of course, he's continuing that familial line. He's continuing that instillment from his father that if you're going to cook with real ingredients. None of that replicated shit.
Did Cartwright just change his last name to Cisco to avoid any fallout? Wasn't the actor who played Cartwright
Or
dad?
Or was it that Cartwright's son changed his name to disassociate from the stigma because of his father?
That could be.
Because that was close to 100 years before the events of Deep Space Nine.
What's a really fucking hard topic, actually? Just because of how, well, as mentioned, how few sources there are that aren't either based on our own holidays today, or are just something that we have not achieved, or something that we do not have a history of, that we need first, such as First Contact Day.
Yeah, here's a question, though. This is actually something I've been trying to think of, and I can't come up with an answer for it, is in the Foundation, do they actually mention any culturally significant holidays throughout its works?
Do you mean all of Foundation, or do you mean Foundation after the events of the first Foundation book, or prelude to Foundation?
Oh, just in universe. Like, what holidays do they have in universe that might actually be a potential?
Technically, they have all the holidays that we have here. It's just that they mostly disappeared by the events of, Prelude, Foundation, and Foundation. Because it is based on the, iRobot universe, which is our universe only with robots. I think it really depends on how far you want to take it, because they used to have it, not so much anymore, but yeah, you get what I mean with it.
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking is, like, what do they have as comparables to possibly draw from?
That's really hard to say, because in the Foundation universe, or Foundation, when it actually gets to the Foundation, it's gotten so scattered that it's really fucking hard to say anything anymore. I mean, in many cases, even the mentions of Earth has become not outlawed, but they become so pushed aside. People have gotten so weirded out by it. Mainly because, as far as I can recall, at the events of the Foundation, Earth has already disappeared pretty much.
Oh, kind of like in Dune, how there really aren't any references to Earth because it's some long forgotten place.
Kinda, yeah. But what really happened was, as far as I recall, they had to irradiate Earth. And this is just from my recollection. I completely just say that this is something I might be really wrong with. But they had to irradiate Earth. But it was going to take so long time that they could get most people off Earth, or as many people as possible off Earth already. After that, with the events that came up to and after Foundation, Earth has become a myth. Something that either people don't want to believe, in some cases it's even taboo to talk about Earth. So people are essentially just repressing that it's even something that's a possibility. When what's his fucking name? There is a character in one of the books that's trying to find Earth. And he goes through, I can't remember, it's 4 or 5 different worlds. And in going through those worlds, he finds, among other things, some of the old spacer worlds. But at the time that he actually gets through it, or he manages to get through it, he finds, or in the end he finds Earth, but so many people have told him it doesn't exist. Or it's something that it has existed, but it is no more. It was destroyed. You can't find it. And it wasn't until, near the end of the book, where he actually did find, he did find Earth as an irradiated hellhole. No living thing left on it.
So technically wasn't wrong. It was essentially destroyed, just not physically demolished, but the ecosystem, the biosphere was wiped out.
Yeah. Which he did find something else though, on the moon. A certain R. Daniil Oliver that needed a child that he had picked up along his journeys to meld with the child's brain, because his own positronic brain had become so complicated, so complex, that it just broke down faster and faster. He had to replace it more and more often, just because of everything going on there. And now he found something biological that could actually work instead. Yeah, that whole thing is... It's a whole lot to read through that bullshit.
Well, and that's kind of where my mind was at, of where would we be able to take it? And that's where the difficulty of finding a source like that comes in, and trying to figure out exactly the potentials is where the real tricks end up coming in.
Yeah. It's just really fucking hard. Because even with that shit, say that you have let's take something. We managed to mostly get rid of religion. But when we have the religious offshoots, as is mentioned, say for example with Rodan there, and Epstein Day. But what if you have something like, say, not just the Mormons, but you have the Hindus, you have, say, some crazy fucking religious group, the fucking Latter-day Saints, some bullshit like that.
Oh, of course you gotta go with the Mormons.
Well, I mean, everyone has dragged down on the Mormons, because, reasons. Now, we can take any group like that, any group that has the kind of extremist people in them. It doesn't have to be direct extremist either. It can be something where it's a how it's called, something where you do have some deeply fucking orthodox people in it. Say, let's say Judaism. We have the Orthodox Jews, the deeply Orthodox Jews,
the Hasidics.
Yes. Imagine that, and them just branching up. Say they bring with them 20,000 individuals, out of which 5 to 10% are Hasidic. How long would it take until that was something that was so ingrained in their society, when you don't have anything else around it? Well, you don't have anything else with different people who either oppose it or question it.
Yeah, that would.
Because that's something where I see one of the main issues really popping up. Here on Earth, as it is right now, you do have a set of checks and balances most of the time. Say that you had a group of people that had essentially a kiddididdle day.
I know. Sorry.
That was really good timing. No,
It's because I'm awesome at that, but yeah.
And I would say that you had some shit like that. That wouldn't really fly if it was official. But you could have a group of people doing some shit like that if they were to break out or break off from everything else. Because they don't have anyone else actually going at them for it. They wouldn't have the checks and balances. They would just have whatever the fuck they themselves wanted.
Yeah, that isolation aspect feeds into it, which is where I said before that once we have that larger gulf, that physical separation again amongst groups of humanity, that's where we're going to see those sort of deviations come up again. And yeah, especially if you go with a typical colonization aspect, you're going to have a religious fundamentalist type of personality that is going to want to group together and go to their own segment, their own location, to just be the way that they believe humanity should be. And it is going to cause a rift in the societal aspect of things. And you'll have that sort of isolationist propagation of certain moralities and flavors of what is and is not acceptable.
Looking at Rodin's question there, I am not sure.
What time period are you wanting to look on? If you're looking modern day, that's going to be a bit more tough to actually analyze, because I could see something like that being commanded, not necessarily legislated, but commanded in some certain countries of a particular massive continent that is seemingly perpetual in conflict and flux. But in the first and second world type civilizations on the planet right now, you're not going to see that too often. The closest you might get to is maybe a purely Islamic theocratic state, not being accepting of holidays that are Jewish or Christian and not have an Islamic equivalent. But aside from that sort of deviation, you are going to be hard-pressed to find it. But go back in history, even just a handful of centuries, and you'll find instances of certain religions, not the religion itself being outlawed, but certain aspects of the religion's practice being outlawed, yet still persisting behind closed doors.
All right, be right back.
Yep.
Gotta go take the dogs out.
No, because if you want to look historically, there's been a lot of shit happening. And a lot of people getting ever so slightly miffed. Especially when it came to the, pagan holidays. Those holidays that you can't celebrate. But here's a new holiday. All for you. It has nothing to do with paganism at all. Except for the day. And, that stuff. But it doesn't count.
Oh, you mean like, how the hell did we go from... Here's when Jesus was crucified and died horribly on the cross. Have a chocolate bunny.
Yeah, kind of. About-ish. That just happened to be on whatever day it was.
Yeah, it seemed to coincide with the former pagan holiday, the celebration of Esther, which is rebirth and fertility, and yeah, totally unrelated. Completely unrelated. I mean, it's not like if you look far enough or look critically enough at the actual history of Christianity as an institution that you'll notice that over the centuries they adopted a lot of pagan symbology and practices in an effort to bring more people into the religion, as sometimes as a bait and switch, kind of, others as a result of forcibly bringing other people into the religion, and those people putting that in and being the ones to do the twist, like Christmas. See, Tech has it right. Jesus has risen. Hide the eggs.
I mean, that kind of actually also works with the rest of it, where Jesus is coming. Hide the eggs. No more virgin birth here now.
But yeah, let's look at the main celebratory tenets that have become nationalized holidays due to Christianity. The biggest ones being Easter and Christmas. Jesus wasn't born in December, from what they've actually been able to piece together, going under the assumption that Jesus was an actual historical person, not questioning the divinity, just whether or not someone of that name existed, going off the premise that they did, and that certain details of the birth were accurate, such as the celestial occurrence. I think it was mid-autumn, Northern Hemisphere, is when he was actually born, not closer to the winter solstice. So...
But then you can't just, take over that holiday too.
Well, and that's exactly it, is you have that manipulation of things. You have that flexibility in by not putting an actual date to it in the texts. Because that's the thing, if you look at especially the early translations of the Bible, there was not an actual date given for his birth or his crucifixion. They gave it in a time period in relation to something else. So trying to fit that sort of timekeeping to an actual calendar that is a regimented calendar, it does make it a bit more creative in the application. And that's before you even start looking at the difference in the calendars that they were using in those first few centuries to establish all this, and the changes that the Romans like to do with the calendar that they were basing it off of.
You can bet though that if there was, okay, say there is this historical person named Jesus, or one that's named Jesus, or as mentioned there by Tectron, Yeshua, Joshua, all that kind of shit. Say that this one, the proposed Messiah, actually had a set date of birth. Say that they'd actually documented this. There are documents just regarding all of this. Do you really think that they would let it, stay there then?
No. No, controlling the information and controlling the narrative is a big part of what has kept the Christian faith in the power position it's been in for centuries. And yeah, Tech has another good point. Someone being named Yeshua or Joshua or Jesus, living in Israel at the time period given, is actually a higher likelihood than picking a random English-speaking city now and finding someone named John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or going to Middle East and trying to find Muhammad.
Right? There are aspects that people tend to... Well, there are details, there are nuances to it that people tend to overlook as, oh, well, you're just being an asshole. You're just being too critical. You're looking for a reason for it to be wrong. No, I'm just
to look hard though.
I'm just looking at all the details that you guys are deciding to ignore.
Well, apart from even the virgin birth, which happened to be the same thing as a couple of other, historical fictional, mythological figures, I should say, on the same day, but details. Apart from all those tiny little things, there's still not really that much proof for that actually having been the Messiah, as it were. But then again, give it a couple of thousand years and you can have someone who's been, say, having schizophrenia, someone with epilepsy, and them just fucking rambling and being crazy as shit. And they'll get seen as saviors or messiahs or prophets. But it's something where people really like to take the things that they like and then just plaster them all over the place when it comes to these kinds of things. And then the small details such as, let's say, the whole tax thing, which didn't really happen that way at the time. But that's special because it happened, because we have documents saying it. Oh yeah? What documents? The Bible.
Yes, the circular logic of the Bible is true because it says it's true.
Yeah.
It don't exactly work.
But imagine though, and as I mentioned now, we take something. We have a colony of people going somewhere. Say they go to Alpha Centauri or Centauri. They go there, and they have some crazy fucking religious nuts there. And then you just give it, say, 1,000 years, 1,500 years, give or take, something or some shit like that. Oh, this person was one of the founders of this expedition. This person was such a great person because they did this and this and this.
But
And
wait,
we can prove it.
but when you actually look at the documentation from the sourcing end here, oh, they were a janitor?
Yeah, a drunk janitor that was high on PCP most of the time.
Yeah, that veil of history, that fog of time does lend to some rather interesting retellings and portrayals of figures. Oh God, just think of Rodent. Think about it. Think about what they would do with that asshole. Sad to say, give it enough time, and if Scientology remains a thing for long enough, oh yeah, he's going to be venerated as all fuck.
Yeah, but not just that. Look at someone else that's actually mainly liked. Elon Musk.
Shit, he's already getting the deity treatment.
Yeah. Imagine how that would be in 500 years.
It actually reminds me of the fucking two factions of otters in the whole atheism and worshipping of science from South Park. It's gonna be like that.
It's going to be fucking retarded.
But if that happens, if that does happen, and someone stumbles upon a working archive and that South Park episode's there, are they going to start looking at Trey Parker and Matt Stone as some long-off prophets that knew how the future was going to play out and were trying to educate the people to get them prepared, but because of society around them, they had to go about it a different way?
I think they would get seen as heretics. I think they would actually get seen as the satire that they are, and people would just try to discredit them.
No, I mean, like, if say we're 2,000, 2,500 years in the future, and that a similar enough society to that is what's in place, and through an archaeological dig or something, they find that material, but lose all societal context of what actually generated that episode. So they're just stumbling upon this episode in as close to a vacuum as possible, and it very closely resembles the society that they are living in and a conflict they are dealing with. I could see it being taken as less satire because of that disconnection through time. And there would be people who would jump on that as some sort of grander knowledge, bigger implication type of thing.
Yeah, no. I just see it as being one of those things where it could go either way. If we look at some of these people, if we look at some of the stuff that's actually come up historically, you can see the people mentioning, say, the crazy people just talking at the temple and shit like that. Something that could potentially be seen today as a sign of, how to put it, a sign of those kinds of people being not the right savior, but then came this person who was, or who actually did it right. Because we do have
kind of like how in Christianity you already have a stepping stone, you already have a progression of different peoples that ultimately led to the Messiah, that led to Jesus, but was not him the entire time. From Moses to David, throughout all of those characters throughout the lineage of the Old Testament, and then, boom, here's the actual Messiah of Jesus.
Yeah, which we already have a similar thing happening with Islam. No, Jesus wasn't the Messiah, he was just another prophet. You take something like that and you just start building something else off it.
Yeah, because they don't actually refer to Muhammad as the Messiah. He's just another prophet in the line.
Yeah. Which, it's something that I see as being, it could go either way. But looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls, looking at the way that history has treated this so far, or people in history has treated it so far, I think that they would get buried. I think they would get seen as either heretics and not to be seen by anyone, or something where they are potentially...
It's venerated as them being an early prophet. One or the other.
Venerated, or something where they get shown, but they get shown as a joke. They get shown as, yeah, see, they're just trying to mock it, or they were just trying to mock it, just to try to diffuse it.
Well, that's where one side, like taking that episode with the otters, you'd have one side venerating them as being prophetic, and the other side demonizing them as being the satirical assholes just trying to make fun of them and discredit them. So you could have both happening at once given the right circumstances.
Yeah. Well, he's your Venus. He's your fire.
But, you know, we've gone down quite the road with this one, and
A massive fucking rabbit hole.
yeah, I kind of figured mentioning holidays in the way so many of them are religious in origin and nature, this was gonna get creative, because sci-fis tend to not delve too deep into the religious aspects, although they kind of flirt with how a religion can actually be sparked and manipulated. Dune. But it just... what holidays would we change and why? That could be an interesting one, but I know there are going to be other more interesting topics to come on the next show, which we are going to take a little bit of an extended break because my happy ass wants to actually have some little more time to actually sit and eat dinner instead of just mowing down on something quick between shows while other people are joining the panel. So we are going to take our break here. We will be back live in a little over 40 minutes at 8:45 Eastern, or wait a minute, what time would that be in not America?
40 minutes ish.
Yeah, yeah.
45. So 2:45 here,
Oh,
as in Central Europe.
so it's already tomorrow. See, we're talking to someone from the future, everyone.
It's still shit.
And it's only going to get worse, but we will see you all soon.